there. What are you up to? Yeah, this area looks nice. You're doing a good job.
Just had a bunch of pinholes from sitting down in the dirt, so none of them were rusted through, but just going over and picking them back up.
Okay.
We might end up making this our used oil tank. I think we have enough to fill it.
Because the other one that we took out back was super long, right? Like 4 of these?
No, this is a 2,000 gallon.
Yeah.
I think we've got that much in barrels. So
Okay.
you can fill it and then burn it up in the shop in a wood.
All right. Well, it'll sure look a lot better buried or on saddles or coat of paint.
Mm-hmm.
I got...
We could cover it in tar, flat this clean, and bury it. And then you just like bury it here and put a pipe and a funnel in the building. So when you change the oil, you just dump it in the funnel and it automatically goes in the ground.
Yeah.
You don't have to go outside in the cold.
And not take up your shop space either. Andy's got that big tank right in his shop.
No, we don't have room for that.
We don't have that big of a space. Okay.
So anyway, there's a bunch of little thin spots, so just take care of that. Motor oil doesn't leak very much.
Does this just take regular welding rod?
Yeah, that's all.
Oh, that's pretty. You guys probably can't see it. The sun's here. Yeah. I heard your grinder going.
So the rest of it's pretty decent. That was, you can see where it had somebody pushed it into a pile of dirt or something.
Yeah.
And all through here and around had these little pits. So the ones that were
Oh.
because the rest of the cave isn't like this at all. It wasn't buried.
So it had some spots where like maybe there was ground contact or something.
Yeah, it's electrolysis. Static electricity got to it. Kind of well through it.
Yeah.
Deep little pits. So just because it was touching the ground.
So if you're unfamiliar with tanks, what does a tank like this use?
I don't know. It'd be, hi buddy. Maybe $3,000 new now.
Okay.
For one just like this.
And everything's running about $1 a gallon.
$1.50 gallon, I think.
Oh my. So like our smaller tanks that are, yeah, $5.50. They're getting sold for about $500 a tank. And I saw a tank with a pump the other day and the guy wanted $975 for a 500 gallon tank with a 12 volt pump. So he was wanting some big bucks for that pump. So if you've got a farm, your grandparents' farm, your dad's farm, don't just dismiss the tanks. We went to an auction a few years ago and the guy was pretty well out of it and trying to clean up the place. A lot of the stuff was his dad's and his grandfather's, and you know, tanks went for 10, 20, 40, 50 bucks. And for us, even like my pigs here, my pigs are using one that was too far gone. We cut the end open with torches and it's their little pig hut. Galvanized metal pig arches, $1,000. So, you know, they got a little home for a little bit of nothing.
Can you grab him so he can't see this?
I sure can. Do you have your explosimeter so you can show us about that?
Yeah.
So if you've got these tanks, we've welded on tanks before and people have left comments like, you're gonna die, you're gonna blow the place up. He's got this handy trick. Well, tanks can be welded on. A lot of times you'll get a overhead tank that stands up on a stand that might have a pinhole in it, and then people just go and buy a whole new tank. If you've got to have a loaner tank on standby, something like that is just fine to have on hand. That tank is a standby tank that it failed really fast. It was something about that brand of tank. And did that have kerosene in it? So he says yes, that did have kerosene in it, and you don't want to just go welding on a tank like that. So he's got this explosimeter. So you want to test the air in the tank to make sure that any gas vapors or any flammable vapors They had this, you said it was for...
Started out for mining, but we use them for tanks. I'll get it out and put it together and show you.
Yeah. So handy little old-fashioned kind of thing. Looks like he had a bigger hole here to have to patch. You're gonna just cut that off? Using it as a plug?
No, that's your ground.
Oh.
Weld it. There's no place on the tank to hook to unless you come way over here and hook to one of the hooks.
Mm-hmm.
The lifting hooks. That was too far from my cabling. So I just weld a bolt on it and then I grind it off and I mold on.
That's smart.
Yep.
As long as nobody walks into it. Okay.
Well, and then you just grind it off when you're done.
So when these tanks are made, there are a couple of tanks welded together.
Basically, this is a 1,000-gallon tank each, 64-inch.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just do 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them. Sniffer rod won't fit in the roller.
Mm-hmm.
But what these do, take quite a bit of power. They take 6 D batteries, and this little air pump brings fumes in from whatever atmosphere it's in.
Combustible gas indicator.
There's 4 little holes at the end of this rod. This pumps it in.
Mm-hmm.
So you turn it on, jump way up, and then you zero it out every time. And the reason this is adjustable, you've got to have the right amount of battery power. So if you can't get that back up to 0 like that,
Mm-hmm.
your batteries are shot. So then you leave it at this angle. It's right at 0 right now. Okay.
And this has a built-in light for
Yeah, the light's on.
underground.
The light's on right now. If you're in a mine. Okay. So I'm pumping it. It won't move because the air's clean. So this tank I just did.
It's upside down, isn't it?
That never moved. We didn't even know it was in it, but you don't have to because you're going to check it with this. So this is rotted gas out of an old pickup that we got running. Stick that in there and watch that meter when it... What it's doing is it's going to burn. That's with one pump. It already jumped up.
Mm-hmm.
It's burning off any explosive gases. Now that's rotted old gas that's in terrible shape, but you can see it's burning it inside and measuring how much it's burning.
And this says it's like 45% explosive.
So as soon as I start giving it some fresh air, every pump, it's going to go right back down because I'm pulling fresh air out of the rod now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's ways to combat explosive tanks. You can fill them. You got to put a new fitting in, say on top. Some guys will fill the whole thing with water and just work on the top. That's okay. Some guys will put. They cannot blow up if you fill them full of diesel exhaust from a running engine because there's not fuel. There's not the correct oxygen to burn. So anyway.
Oh, so filling it with air would give it oxygen to burn.
Yeah, you can't.
That's what I was going to ask.
You can't have an explosion if you don't have the right kind of air or mix. So there's a couple different ways guys will do it. The correct way is to steam them, and some guys do it with like a steam power washer. Just let them run on there. Basically what you're doing is sweating out of the gasoline fumes and vapors and everything actually get right into the pores of the steel of a tank. So having it empty and dry for a while means nothing. It can take years. So if you steam them out, like big tankers like we run, you have to actually steam them out, check them. That's the proper way to do it, to steam them. But if you fill them, just little tanks like this, if you fill them full of exhaust, people will do that. Fine.
So is that how old tankers can be used as water trucks? They steam them?
Yeah, if you want to get the fuel out of them, you have to steam them. Then it comes out with the super heated water.
Because in our area, there's
Steam fills the
pool
compartment.
filling.
When it condenses on the side, it's so hot, brings the fuel in with it and runs right out the bottom, out your drain.
So do they collect that in something due to the EPA requirements?
They just put it in an oil water separator, and then when it gets in there, it separates back out, and you have your oil, your fuel, and your water is separate again. So yeah, like at a tank repair facility,
Yeah.
the water from the steam goes to an oil water separator. So then once it cools down, it separates right back out, and you wouldn't get a.
So the oil would float on top of water,
as
just
far
like
as gasoline, when you steam a tanker, you wouldn't get a Dixie cup full of gas. It's just the residual, you know.
Okay. So tell me
But
about.
it's enough to blow them up.
Huh. Just because it starts to get under pressure from welding?
No, it's heat.
Okay.
You've got the right mixture of oxygen and fuel.
He's been around this whole life, so he knows. I don't.
Huh?
I said you've been around this your whole life, so you know where I don't.
They're not to be messed with. So these are hundreds of dollars, but we won't touch the tank without it.
And it just, did you take your, never mind.
Huh?
I was going to ask you about your batteries. You should probably take the batteries out.
We will. And then once we get done repairing them, this is my tester.
This is a manifold that he made for sticking on top of.
Low pressure gauge. Big tankers, a lot of them are 3 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
You can just get this plumbed into anything. This on a big tanker, this would end up going into a cam lock.
Okay.
But you give it supply here as you want. I've got it so you can watch the gauge and stop the flow. And this is my exhaust. And then if we were gonna use the tank for fuel again, this one's probably just gonna be used oil, so it's not that big of a deal. But with everything I did here, this tank didn't actually leak at all. It just had some really iffy thin spots, so it's not worth anything. We're just gonna use it for something like that. But that's how we test them when they're done.
So I saw a video on getting an old truck running kind of thing, and the guy was talking that old gas is only good for 30 days. And then he goes, well, maybe 3 months. He really didn't know. So tell our viewers and educate me about how long the actual gas, like today's ethanol gases,
If it
last.
has 10% ethanol, what happens is the gas that we're loading is actually 84 octane to make 87, because alcohol is a really good way to raise octane.
Mm-hmm.
So when you add 10% ethanol to 84, it raises it to 87. Well, when it sits in a storage tank for months,
Mm-hmm.
the alcohol, if you dump whiskey on the table, and watch it, it's just gone. It's just right out in the air. So the 10% ethanol comes out of the gasoline, so you're left with 84, and that's why people are having starting trouble in a vehicle that's sat around for a few weeks or months. Your octane's too low to start the vehicle. It's made to burn 87, so you're trying to start at 84. So they're having to give it a shot of starting fluid. Also, you can throw mothballs in your gas tank, livens it back up.
I didn't know that.
So if you put mothballs in your gas tank, there's some type of, it says that the ingredients on a box of mothballs, and it pops it back up. Or starting fluid is kind of a cheap, because once they're running, they'll run on 84 just fine.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what happens. So if you're getting rat gas,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have any ethanol. It just kind of stays a little long. But gasoline has never lasted very long. It doesn't have a good shelf life.
And the ethanol comes from the byproduct of them refining corn.
That's corn. These plastic jugs we have around here,
Mm-hmm.
what happens to the gas is the lighter components actually come out of it. That's why gas doesn't need good fuel oil. For instance, these jugs right here originally had some type of additive in them. Even with light diesel fuel additive, the lighter components in anything will actually leach right through that plastic out to the atmosphere. These, if you let these sit long enough, this one got run over, but if say you bought one of these with diesel fuel additive, all the lighter components come right through the plastic. If you forgot about it, if you came back 2 or 3 years later, these jugs actually are sucked in, because
Yeah.
you have if they're sealed up tight with a seal on top, you come back in a few years and you find it, it'll be sucked right in, because all the lighter components of the diesel fuel additive came right out into the air. It happens with everything. But fuel oil and diesel,
Because they don't have an oxygen barrier in that plastic.
whatever kind of plastic this is,
Yeah.
it actually is letting fumes through all day. So that's what's happening with gas, with really light components
Mm-hmm.
coming out through that. and it changes it, and it becomes heavier and heavier with lower oxygen.
I knew about that oxygen barrier in containers because they're now doing an oxygen barrier for maple syrup jugs, so that you have a longer shelf life, because you're supposed to not basically bottle it in those retail packaging until you're ready to sell it. So
yeah, I'll show you what happens.
that's something to keep in mind.
This is from touching the dirt where we had these, but if you look at the rest of it, okay,
Yeah.
this tank was sitting right on the ground right here. And this spot was untouched. That's bare metal that was under this paint from brand new.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens when they get in the dirt. It just destroys them. That's
It just
perfectly
ate through all
smooth.
that. Well, not ate.
It's like welding. Static electricity from all this underground loss makes these little pits. It's not actually rusting so much as...
So we had this out back for storage. He pulled it up. You can see here, like, here's a good chunk of it.
Same deal.
That, like, how many layers have just wore off. So I'm going to have to take the wire wheel to that. I mean, look at how deep all this is.
That's not that bad, but those down there were actually getting drilled right through, so I thought, well,
Yeah.
for as little time as it takes some money to get it thickened up. Just a few sticks of rod and then...
Well, I thought it was an interesting thing to share with you guys because I had gotten comments when he was welding on a tank before, like, that he's going to die or we're going to blow the place up, like I said. And this tank has been sitting here waiting for that repair. Just, he had to get that meter here. He had it at another location, and then, you know, life happens. So that is kind of what's going on here. We've been doing shop cleanup and moving barrels and whatever for our future plans, and this is going to get finished and painted up. And you know what? It is December. It is supposed to be 55 degrees today, isn't it? So I can actually clean this up and get it painted, except for short daylight and things to do. So, but it's going to be warm for a couple other days. We are having a mild December because November was so cold. Actually, on Christmas Day, the weather was forecasted for the same as it was on Halloween this year, at like 32, 34 degrees. And yeah, it was too cold for a lot of kids to go out trick-or-treating. So this is post-Christmas. This is what we've got going on, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.